The officers' lounge on Galactic Council Station Epsilon 7 was filled with the usual evening crowd. Blue smoke from alien cigarettes drifted through the air while officers from different worlds shared drinks and stories. The lighting was dim, casting long shadows across the metal tables and chairs. Captain Taman sat at the center table, his uniform perfectly pressed and his medals gleaming under the artificial lights. He held a glass of Centaurian whiskey in one hand while gesturing wildly with the other. Around him sat 5 other officers, all listening with wide eyes and open mouths. And then, Taman said, taking a long sip of his drink, the last group of humans tried to hide in some old mining tunnels on Kepler 442b. They thought they were so clever, digging deep into the rock like some kind of animals. Commander Hyunwoo from the 3rd Fleet leaned forward. "How many were there?" 43 adults and maybe 20 children, Taman replied with a cruel smile. They had been living in those tunnels for months, eating whatever they could find. When my men found them, they were thin and dirty. Some of them were sick. The other officers nodded and made sounds of disgust. Lieutenant Jae-sung from engineering shook his head. "Deathworld natives," he muttered. "They never learn when to give up." Taman laughed loudly. That's what made them so dangerous. Even when they knew they were beaten, they kept fighting. But in the end, it didn't matter. My team is trained for this kind of work. We tracked every single one of them down. Across the room, Lieutenant Sora sat alone at a small table near the window. She was young for an intelligence officer, maybe 25 standard years old. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and she wore the simple gray uniform of the intelligence division. Unlike the others, she was not drinking alcohol. Instead, she had a cup of tea that had gone cold while she listened. Sora had been pretending to read reports on her datapad, but really she was listening to every word Taman said. Something about his stories bothered her, but she could not put her finger on what it was. "Tell them about the family you found on Titan 7, suggested Major Kehoe, who commanded a patrol squadron. Taman's eyes lit up. Oh, that was a good one. Intelligence reports said there might be humans hiding in the ice caves. It took us 3 weeks to find them because they kept moving around. A man, a woman, and their 2 young kids. He paused to finish his drink and signal for another one. The alien bartender, a tall creature with 4 arms, quickly brought him a refill. The father tried to negotiate, Taman continued. He said they just wanted to be left alone. He promised they would never cause trouble. The woman was holding the smaller child, maybe 4 years old. She was crying. "What did you do?" asked Commander Hyunwoo. "What do you think I did?" Taman spread his arms wide. "I followed orders." The Galactic Council was very clear about humans. They are too dangerous to be allowed to live freely. Every single one of them had to be processed. The word processed made Sora's stomach turn. She knew what it really meant, even if the others pretended it was something less terrible. "How many humans did you track down in total?" asked Lieutenant Jae-sung. Taman puffed out his chest proudly. 847. Every single human that escaped the initial evacuation of Earth. It took me 6 months, but I found them all. Some were hiding on asteroid mining stations. Others had tried to blend in with human-looking aliens on the outer rim worlds. A few had even tried to change their appearance with surgery. "But you found them all," Major Kehoe said with admiration. "Every last one," Taman confirmed. "The galaxy is a safer place now. No more humans spreading their violent ideas or causing trouble with their Deathworld instincts." Sora quietly opened her datapad and began accessing the official mission reports. Her security clearance allowed her to read most military documents, even classified ones. As she scrolled through Taman's files, she began to see the numbers that bothered her. According to the initial evacuation records, 847 humans had indeed refused to leave Earth when the planet was declared uninhabitable. The report said these humans had scattered to dozens of different worlds and space stations. Taman's mission was to locate and relocate them to safer worlds. But as Sora read deeper, she found strange details in the field reports. Taman often mentioned finding evidence of much larger settlements than the number of humans he actually captured. On one world, he reported finding sleeping areas for over 200 people, but only arrested 37 humans. On another station, he found food storage that could feed hundreds for months, but only located 53 individuals. Where were the others? The best part, Taman was saying, was how scared they all were when they realized they had been found. These tough Deathworld natives would just crumble when faced with real military power. Some of them begged, Others tried to run, but you can't outrun a starship. The other officers laughed and raised their glasses in a toast. To Captain Taemin, Commander Hyunwoo announced, the man who cleaned up the human problem. To Captain Taemin, the others repeated, drinking deeply. Sora felt sick. She closed her datapad and stood up quietly, not wanting to hear any more. But as she walked toward the exit, she heard Taemin say something that made her stop. The funny thing is, some of them just vanished. We would find their camps or their ships, but the humans would be gone. No trace of where they went or how they escaped. It was like they had never existed at all. Probably just your reputation preceding you, joked Lieutenant Jae-sung. They heard the great Captain Taemin was coming and ran away. Maybe, Taemin replied, but Sora heard something different in his voice. For just a moment he sounded uncertain, but they couldn't run far. Space is big, but it's not infinite. I found all of them eventually. Sora left the lounge with Taemin's words echoing in her mind. Something was wrong with his story. The numbers didn't match, and now he was admitting that many humans had simply disappeared without explanation. As she walked down the empty corridor toward her quarters, Sora made a decision. She was going to find out what really happened to those 847 humans, and she was going to discover why Captain Taemin's perfect success story had so many holes in it. The station's lights dimmed automatically as the shift changed from day to night cycle. In the distance, she could still hear laughter from the officers' lounge. But Lieutenant Sora was no longer thinking about drinks and stories. She was thinking about missing people and lies told with medals and whiskey. Lieutenant Sora sat in her small quarters at 0300 station time. The lights were turned low and the only sound was the gentle hum of the air recycling system. Her datapad lay open on the desk, showing page after page of military reports and classified documents. She had been reading for 4 hours straight, and her eyes burned from staring at the screen. But she could not stop. Every file she opened made the picture clearer and more horrible. The official story about Earth was simple. 3 years ago, the Galactic Council declared the planet too dangerous for continued habitation. The gravity was too strong, the weather too violent, and the native life too aggressive. For the safety of all species, Earth would be evacuated and then sealed off from the galaxy. According to the records, most humans accepted this decision peacefully. They were relocated to safer worlds with similar atmospheres. The Council even provided them with new homes and jobs. It was presented as a humanitarian rescue operation, but 847 humans refused to leave. They called themselves Free Earth and claimed the Council had no right to force them from their homeworld. These rebels fled into space before the evacuation was complete, scattering to dozens of different systems. That was where Captain Taemin came in. His mission was to track down these fugitives and convince them to join the relocation program. The files described it as a peaceful extraction operation, designed to protect both the humans and the galaxy at large. Sora rubbed her tired eyes and opened another file. This one was marked with a higher security classification, something most junior officers would never see. But her work in intelligence gave her access to almost everything. What she read made her hands shake. Earth had not been evacuated. It had been sterilized. The real reports told a different story. When the humans refused to leave their world, the Council decided they were too dangerous to exist anywhere. A fleet of 12 ships had surrounded Earth and used plasma bombardment to burn away the atmosphere. Every city, every forest, every ocean had been turned to ash and glass. The humans in space were not refugees. They were the only survivors of their entire species. Sora stared at the screen in horror. The Council had committed genocide and then covered it up with lies about relocation and humanitarian aid. But that was not the worst part. She opened Captain Taemin's real mission files, the ones that required her highest security clearance to access. What she found there made her stomach turn. Taemin's orders were clear. Locate and eliminate all remaining human survivors. No witnesses. No exceptions. Report successful relocation to maintain operational security. The word eliminate was repeated dozens of times throughout the documents. There had never been any plan to relocate the humans. From the beginning, it had always been about murder. But as Sora read through Taemin's field reports, she found the same inconsistencies that had bothered her in the lounge. Over and over again, he described finding evidence of human settlements that were much larger than the number of people he actually killed. On Kepler 442b, He reported finding a hidden base built for at least 300 people, but he only found 63 humans there. His report claimed the others had scattered into the wilderness, but he never found any bodies or additional camps. On the mining station near Vega 7, he discovered food supplies that could feed 150 people for 6 months. He only captured 41 humans. Again, his report mentioned that others had fled deeper into the asteroid field, but provided no proof of their deaths. The pattern repeated on world after world. Taman would find signs of large human populations, but only eliminate small groups. Each time he claimed the rest had escaped just before his arrival, but he never provided evidence that he had tracked them down and killed them. Sora leaned back in her chair, thinking hard. Either Taman was lying about his success or something else was happening, something the Council did not know about. She opened a new file, this one containing intercepted communications between human settlements before Taman's arrival. The Intelligence Division had been monitoring human transmissions for months, trying to locate their hiding places. Most of the messages were simple things. Families looking for each other, groups sharing information about safe places to hide, people asking for food or medical supplies. But some of the messages were different. They were coded in ways that the Council's computers could not break. Short bursts of numbers and letters that seemed to make no sense. The Intelligence Division had marked them as unimportant, probably just random noise from damaged equipment. Sora was not so sure. She was good with codes and patterns. It was part of her job to find hidden meanings in enemy communications. As she studied the messages, she began to see something that chilled her blood. The coded transmissions were not random. They were warnings. Each message was sent just before Taman's forces arrived at a human settlement. Someone was watching the Council ships and sending advance warning to the humans. That was how so many of them managed to disappear before they could be killed. But who was sending the warnings? And how did they know where Taman was going to strike next? Sora scrolled through more files looking for patterns. She found records of Taman's battle reports, including detailed accounts of the few times humans had fought back instead of running. What she read there made no sense at all. In one report, Taman described attacking a human ship near the binary stars of Alpha Centauri. The ship was small and lightly armed, carrying only 12 humans. It should have been an easy victory for Taman's heavy cruiser, but the battle lasted for 3 hours. The human ship used tactics that were not in any known database. It moved in ways that should have been impossible for its size and engine type. When it was finally destroyed, Taman's ship had taken serious damage and lost 6 crew members. For 12 humans in a small ship to do that much damage made no sense. Unless they had access to technology and training that the Council knew nothing about. Sora found similar reports from other battles. Each time, small groups of humans had fought with skills and equipment far beyond what they should have possessed. Some of them had weapons that could cut through Council armor like it was paper. Others had ships that could disappear from sensors in the middle of a fight. The humans were not just running and hiding. They were learning. They were adapting. They were becoming something new. Sora closed the files and sat in the darkness of her quarters. She now knew the truth about what happened to Earth and its people, but she also knew something else, something that would terrify the Council if they realized it. Captain Taman had not killed 847 humans. He had probably killed less than half that number. The rest were still out there, somewhere in the darkness between stars, and they were no longer the same species that had lived on the blue world the Council had burned. They were something else now, something harder and smarter and more dangerous than before. And if Taman's battle reports were accurate, they were preparing for something much bigger than just survival. Sora made a decision that would change everything. She was going to find out what the surviving humans were really doing. Even if it cost her career or her life, she needed to know the truth, because she was beginning to suspect that Captain Taman had not won his war against humanity. He had only made them angry. Sora spent the next 2 days digging deeper into the restricted archives. She barely slept and forgot to eat meals as she followed one clue after another. Her security access opened doors that most officers never even knew existed. And what she found behind those doors made her question everything she thought she knew about the galaxy. The first breakthrough came when she accessed the Council's xenobiology files. She was looking for information about human capabilities and weaknesses, trying to understand how they could have survived Taman's attacks. What she found instead was a research report from 3 years ago, just before Earth was destroyed. The report was written by Dr. Yunsik, the Council's leading expert on dangerous species. It was marked Eyes Only Security Council and had never been released to the general military. Sora read it twice before she fully understood what it meant. According to Dr. Yunsik, humans were not just another aggressive species. They were unique in ways that made them incredibly dangerous to the existing order. Their brains worked differently from other intelligent species. Where most aliens thought in straight lines, humans could think in dozens of directions at once. They could adapt to almost any environment within a single generation. Most frightening of all, they had an unusual ability to unite different species under common causes. The report included examples from human history. Time after time, humans had convinced other species to work together against common enemies. They had a talent for building alliances that crossed traditional boundaries of race, culture, and biology. Dr. Yunsik warned that if humans ever learned about the Council's secret activities, they would become the greatest threat to established galactic order in recorded history. Sora felt cold as she read the final recommendation. Immediate elimination advised. No human survivors should be permitted to exist outside Council control. That was when she understood. The Council had not destroyed Earth because it was dangerous. They had destroyed it because they were afraid of what humans might discover about them, and apparently they had been right to be afraid. She opened another file, this one containing intercepted human communications from 4 years ago, before the destruction of Earth. These messages had been gathered by Council spy networks, but never acted upon because Earth was destroyed before anyone could analyze them properly. The humans had been investigating something called the Silent Worlds. These were planets that had once supported intelligent life, but had gone mysteriously quiet over the past century. The official Council records claimed these worlds had suffered natural disasters or had chosen to isolate themselves from galactic society, but the human researchers had found evidence that suggested something much darker. They had discovered patterns in the disappearances. Each world had gone silent, shortly after refusing to accept Council protection. Services. Each world had been rich in resources that the Council later claimed for safekeeping. The humans had been building a case that the Galactic Council was systematically destroying any species that refused to submit to their authority. They had found evidence of 12 different genocides, all covered up and hidden from the galaxy at large. Sora's hands shook as she read the human research files. The evidence was overwhelming. The Council was not the peaceful organization it pretended to be. It was a predator that consumed entire civilizations and then rewrote history to hide its crimes, and the humans had been about to expose everything when the Council struck first. But that was not the most frightening discovery Sora made that day. The worst revelation came when she accessed Taiman's final mission report, the one he had used to claim complete success in his war against humanity. According to his official report, Taiman had tracked the last group of human survivors to a barren moon in the Outer Rim territories. The moon was called Desolation 7, and it had no atmosphere and no natural resources. It was the perfect place for desperate fugitives to make their final stand. Taiman's report claimed he had found 30 humans hiding in an abandoned mining facility. They were the last survivors of their species, weak and starving after months of running from his forces. The report described how his fleet of 12 ships had surrounded the moon and demanded surrender. When the humans refused, Taiman ordered an attack. The battle lasted only 2 hours and all 30 humans were killed. Taiman's report declared the human threat eliminated forever. But Sora found the real battlefield recordings, the ones that had been classified too high for most officers to see. What she discovered there made her blood run cold. The battle had not lasted 2 hours. It had lasted 18 hours, and it had not been the easy victory Taiman claimed. The recording showed Taiman's 12 ships approaching the moon, confident in their overwhelming advantage. The humans were outnumbered 400 to 1, with no heavy weapons and no chance of escape. But when the shooting started, everything went wrong for the Council forces. The humans did not fight like desperate refugees. They fought like soldiers who had been preparing for this moment their entire lives. Their small facility was protected by shields that should not have existed. Their weapons hit targets that should have been impossible to reach. Their tactics were unlike anything in Council military databases. One by one, Taemin's ships began to take damage. The humans seemed to know exactly where to hit to cause maximum harm with minimum firepower. They used the moon's terrain like they had been born there, disappearing into canyons and caves only to emerge somewhere completely unexpected. By the end of the first day, 3 of Taemin's ships had been destroyed. By the end of the second day, 6 more were too damaged to continue fighting. The remaining 3 ships were forced to retreat to a safe distance and call for reinforcements. But when the reinforcements arrived 12 hours later, they found something impossible. The moon was empty, the human facility was destroyed, and 27 human bodies were found in the wreckage. But 3 humans were missing, along with their ship and any trace they had ever been there. The battle recordings showed 30 humans at the start of the fight, but only 27 bodies were recovered. The missing humans had somehow escaped from a moon with no atmosphere, past a fleet of council ships, without leaving any trail for the sensors to follow. They had vanished completely as if they had never existed at all. Taemin's real report admitted that he had no idea how they had escaped, but his official report claimed total victory because his superiors wanted to hear that the human problem was solved forever. So-Ra sat in her dark quarters, staring at the evidence spread across her datapad screen. The truth was clear now, and it was terrifying. The Council had committed genocide against humanity because humans were about to expose their crimes against 12 other species. But the genocide had failed. At least 3 humans had survived, and they were somewhere in the galaxy with knowledge that could destroy the Council forever. More importantly, these survivors had capabilities that no one understood. They could disappear without a trace. They could fight battles they should never have been able to win. They had technology that was beyond anything in Council databases. And if the pattern So-Ra had discovered was correct, they were not alone. Hundreds of humans were still alive, scattered across the galaxy, learning and adapting and preparing for something. So-Ra realized she had stumbled onto the most dangerous secret in galactic history. The Council thought they had won their war against humanity, but they had actually started something much worse. They had created an enemy that was invisible, unpredictable, and driven by a desire for justice that would never be satisfied until the truth was revealed. The question now was, what So-Ra should do with this knowledge. She could report it to her superiors and probably be executed for knowing too much. She could try to warn the Council about the danger they faced and risk being branded a traitor, or she could do something that had never occurred to her before. She could try to find the surviving humans herself and learn what they were really planning. Because one thing was certain, the war between the Council and humanity was far from over. And So-Ra was beginning to suspect that the Council was going to lose. 2 weeks later, So-Ra stood on the bridge of the reconnaissance vessel Swift Judgment as it approached the Outer Rim territories. She had requested transfer to a deep space patrol mission, using her security clearance and intelligence background to justify the assignment. Her commanding officer, Captain Min-Ho, believed she was investigating potential security threats in the frontier regions. He had no idea she was really hunting for the truth about humanity's survivors. The ship was small but well-equipped for long-range exploration. It carried advanced sensors, a full computer analysis suite, and enough supplies for 6 months in deep space. Most importantly, it had access to restricted databases that could help So-Ra piece together what had really happened during Taemin's campaign. Their first destination was Kepler 442b, the world where Taemin claimed to have found humans hiding in mining tunnels. According to his official report, it had been a simple operation. His forces had surrounded the tunnel entrance and captured all 43 adults and 20 children without a fight. But So-Ra wanted to see the place for herself. Kepler 442b was a cold, rocky world with thin atmosphere and no native life. The mining tunnels had been carved by an industrial corporation 50 years ago, then abandoned when the ore ran out. It was exactly the kind of place desperate refugees might choose to hide. So-Ra and her small survey team took a shuttle down to the planet's surface. Captain Min-Ho had agreed to let her conduct a routine security inspection, checking for any signs of remaining human activity. What they found made So-Ra's suspicions seem small and foolish. The tunnel complex was enormous. It stretched for kilometers underground with dozens of side passages and hidden chambers. But more importantly, It showed clear signs of recent habitation by far more people than Taemin had reported. "Look at this," said Corporal Dong-wook, the team's technical specialist. He was scanning one of the larger chambers with a portable analysis unit. "The air recycling system has been modified to support at least 300 people. These power conduits could run lighting and heating for a settlement 10 times larger than what Captain Taemin described." Sora examined the living areas more carefully. She found sleeping alcoves carved into the rock walls, enough for over 200 adults. The food storage areas could have fed a small city for months. Most telling of all, she discovered a workshop where someone had been manufacturing advanced electronic equipment. "Corporal," she called Dong-wook over to examine the workshop. "What do you make of this?" Dong-wook studied the remaining equipment with growing amazement. "Lieutenant, this is incredible. Whoever was working here had access to technology I've never seen before. Look at these circuit patterns and these alloy compositions. This is years ahead of anything in our databases." Sora felt a chill run down her spine. "Could humans have built this?" "Not the humans we know about," Dong-wook replied. "But maybe humans who had been learning and adapting for months or years. This looks like it was designed by people who understood our technology better than we do." They spent 3 days exploring the tunnel complex. Everywhere they looked, they found evidence that hundreds of humans had lived there, not the 63 that Taemin claimed to have captured. More disturbing, they found signs that most of the inhabitants had left in an organized evacuation, taking almost everything valuable with them. They had warning, Sora realized as she studied the abandoned chambers. Someone told them Taemin was coming and they had time to pack up and disappear. But where had they gone? The answer came when Dong-wook discovered something hidden in the deepest part of the tunnel system. Behind a concealed door, they found a chamber filled with computer equipment that was still running on backup power. "Lieutenant, you need to see this," Dong-wook called excitedly. "It's some kind of communication center, and it's still recording data." Sora hurried to examine the discovery. The chamber contained dozens of monitoring devices, all focused on tracking Council ship movements in the local star systems. Whoever had built this place had been watching everything that happened within 50 light-years, but that was not the most shocking discovery. When Dong-wook managed to access the computer records, they found detailed files on every Council military operation in the region for the past 2 years. The humans had not just been hiding. They had been gathering intelligence on a massive scale. "How is this possible?" Dong-wook asked, staring at the data. "This information is classified at the highest levels. How could refugees have access to our military communications?" Sora was beginning to understand. They're not refugees anymore. They're something else entirely. Over the next month, Sora's ship visited 6 more worlds where Taemin had conducted operations. At each location, they found the same pattern. Evidence of large human settlements that had been evacuated before Taemin arrived. Advanced technology that should not have existed. Communication equipment monitoring Council activities. On the mining station near Vega 7, they discovered that someone had modified the asteroid's mining equipment to serve as a massive sensor array. The humans had been tracking ship movements across 3 entire star systems. On the ice world of Hoth 9, they found an underground facility that could have housed 1,000 people. The geothermal tap showed engineering skills that impressed even Dong-wook, and the camouflage was so perfect that only detailed sensor sweeps could detect it. But the most disturbing discovery came on a small moon called Haven 3. There, hidden in a natural cave system, Sora found something that changed everything. She thought she knew about the surviving humans. It was a memorial. The chamber was carved from solid rock and filled with thousands of names written in human script. At the center stood a holographic display showing the blue and green world that had once been Earth. Around the walls were detailed records of every person who had died when their homeworld was destroyed. But this was not just a place of mourning. It was also a center of learning. The caves contained a vast library of human knowledge, carefully preserved and expanded. Books, videos, technical manuals, historical records, and scientific data from hundreds of different fields. Someone had been working systematically to save and protect everything humanity had ever learned. More importantly, they had been adding to it. Sora found research notes that showed humans studying Council technology, biology, and military tactics. They were learning everything they could about their enemies, preparing for something that required years of careful planning. "Lieutenant?" Dongwook said quietly as they explored the memorial chamber. Look at this. He was standing before a wall covered with star charts and tactical diagrams. The charts showed the positions of every major council world, military base, and supply station. The tactical diagrams analyzed the strengths and weaknesses of council defenses. But most chilling of all was a simple message written in large letters across the bottom of the wall. For Earth, for our children. For justice. We remember. Sora stared at the message for a long time, trying to understand what it meant. The surviving humans were not just hiding or running. They were not even focused on simple revenge. They were planning something much larger and more complicated. Corporal, she said finally, I want you to analyze all the data we've collected. Look for patterns in the technology, the locations, the timing of everything. I need to understand what these people are really doing. Dongwook worked for 3 days while their ship remained hidden near the memorial moon. When he finally presented his conclusions, Sora realized just how badly the Council had underestimated their enemy. The humans are not acting like refugees or terrorists, Dongwook explained. They're acting like a government in exile. They have communication networks, research facilities, manufacturing capabilities, and intelligence operations. They're building something, Lieutenant. Something big. Building toward what? Sora asked. I think they're preparing to expose the Council's crimes to the entire galaxy, Dongwook replied. All this intelligence gathering, all this technology development, it's designed for one purpose. They want to prove what the Council really is and bring it down. Sora felt a mixture of fear and admiration. The humans had lost their world and most of their people, but they had not given up. Instead, they had become something the galaxy had never seen before. They were the victims of genocide who refused to die quietly. And if Dongwook was right, they were preparing to fight back in a way that would change everything. Sora's investigation came to an abrupt end when her ship received an urgent recall message from Council Command. The transmission was marked with the highest priority codes, meaning she had no choice but to return immediately to face questioning about her unauthorized activities. In the Outer Rim, someone had been watching her movements and had reported her. Investigation to the authorities, Captain. Minho was confused and worried as he set course back toward Council space. Lieutenant, what exactly were you looking for out there? Command is asking very specific questions about your research activities. Sora felt trapped. She could not tell him the truth about what she had discovered without putting both of them in danger. I was following up on some inconsistencies in old mission reports. Routine intelligence work. But she knew it was much more serious than that. Someone in the Council hierarchy had realized she was getting too close to the truth about humanity's survivors. They were bringing her back to silence her permanently. The journey home took 6 days. During that time, Sora carefully copied all her research data onto encrypted storage devices and hid them in various parts of the ship. If something happened to her, maybe someone else would eventually find the evidence and continue her work. On the 4th day of their return journey, everything changed. They were passing through the Beta Centauri system when their sensors detected a derelict ship drifting near the outer planets. The vessel was small and appeared to be of human design, which was impossible since all human ships had supposedly been destroyed years ago. Captain, reported Ensign Nara from the sensor station. The ship appears to be abandoned. No life signs, no power readings, no response to our hails. Captain Minho studied the readings with interest. It could be a valuable intelligence find. Lieutenant Sora, this seems like exactly the kind of thing your investigation was looking for. Sora felt a chill of warning, but she could not refuse to investigate without arousing suspicion. Yes, sir. I recommend we board the vessel and conduct a full examination. 2 hours later, Sora led a boarding party of 4 officers onto the mysterious ship. The airlock opened easily, suggesting the vessel had not been abandoned for very long. Inside, they found a small but sophisticated craft with technology that was clearly human in origin, but far more advanced than anything in Council databases. The ship was indeed empty, but it showed signs of recent habitation. The life support systems were still running on emergency power. Personal belongings were scattered throughout the living quarters. Most importantly, the main computer was still active. Look at this, said Corporal Dongwook as he examined the navigation system. This ship has been to places that aren't on any Council star charts. These coordinates don't match anything in our databases. Sora was studying the communications equipment when she found something that made her blood freeze. The ship's message logs contained detailed information about Council military movements, including the exact route and timing of her own ship's journey. The humans knew she was coming. They had been tracking her investigation from the beginning, but that was not the most disturbing discovery. In the ship's main computer, she found a single message file labeled, "For Lieutenant Sora of Council Intelligence." With shaking hands, she opened the file. "Lieutenant Sora," the message began in clear Council standard language. "We know who you are and what you have been investigating. We know you have discovered the truth about what happened to Earth and its people. We also know that your superiors are planning to silence you when you return to Council space." Sora's heart pounded as she continued reading. "We are offering you a choice. You can continue back to Council space and face whatever punishment they have planned for you, or you can help us complete the work you started. The choice is yours, but you must decide now. If you choose to help us power down your ship's communication systems and wait, we will contact you again within 12 hours. If you choose to return to the Council, delete this message and continue on your way. But remember that every day you delay is another day that justice remains hidden." The message was unsigned, but it ended with a simple phrase that Sora recognized from the memorial chamber. "For Earth, for our children, for justice." Sora stared at the message for a long time, her mind racing. The humans had been watching her investigation all along. They knew about her discoveries and her danger. They were offering her a chance to join them, but it would mean betraying everything she had ever known. Before she could make a decision, Corporal Dongwook called out from the cargo hold. "Lieutenant, you need to see this immediately." She hurried to where he was standing beside an open storage container. Inside the container were Council military uniforms, equipment, and identification badges. But these were not captured supplies. They were perfect replicas, made with access to manufacturing techniques that only the Council possessed. "How is this possible?" Dongwook asked in amazement. "These uniforms are identical to ours down to the smallest detail. The fabric, the electronics, the security chips, everything is perfect." Sora realized what she was looking at. The humans had not just been gathering intelligence about the Council. They had been infiltrating it. Some of their people were already inside the Council military, passing as loyal officers while gathering information and preparing for whatever plan they were developing. The implications were terrifying. If humans could create perfect Council identities, then anyone could be working for them. Any officer, any administrator, any leader could secretly be part of the human resistance. "Corporal, we need to return to our ship immediately," Sora said urgently. "Gather all the evidence you can carry. But we cannot stay here any longer." But when they returned to the Swift Judgment, they found something that changed everything. Half of their crew was missing. Ensign Nara, Chief Engineer Quan Ho, and 2 security officers had simply vanished while the boarding party was away. There were no signs of struggle, no alarm had been triggered, and the ship's security systems showed no record of any unauthorized entry. Captain Minho was frantic. "How is this possible?" The ship was sealed and guarded. "No one could have gotten aboard without triggering every alarm we have." Sora knew the answer, but she could not say it aloud. The humans had taken the missing crew members probably to safety. They had done it so quietly and efficiently that the ship's systems had not even detected their presence. The message was clear. The humans could reach anyone, anywhere, anytime they chose. The Council's technology and security meant nothing to them. Over the next 3 days, as they continued toward Council space, more strange things began happening. Officers throughout the Council military were reporting missing personnel. Small groups of people were vanishing from bases, ships, and installations across dozens of star systems. The pattern was always the same. No signs of struggle, no alarms triggered, no evidence of how the disappearances had occurred. The missing people were always low-ranking personnel who had shown signs of conscience or doubt about Council policies. Captain Minho received updates about the crisis through official channels. "Command is calling it equipment failures and accidents," he told Sora. "But 47 people don't just disappear because of equipment failures." Sora nodded. But she was thinking about something else entirely. She was thinking about the choice the humans had offered her. Continue back to Council space and face certain punishment for discovering the truth, or join the resistance and help them expose the Council's crimes. The decision became easier when she received a private message on her personal communicator. The message contained detailed information about what was waiting for her when she returned to council space. A secret trial, followed by memory erasure and assignment to a labor camp where she would spend the rest of her life. The council was not just planning to silence her. They were planning to destroy her completely. But the message also contained something else: coordinates for a safe meeting place and instructions for how to contact the human resistance. Sora realized that the war between the council and humanity had entered a new phase. The humans were no longer just hiding and gathering information. They were actively recruiting allies from within the council itself, offering protection to anyone who was willing to stand up for justice. The hunters had become the hunted, and the game was changing in ways that would reshape the entire galaxy. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened at 800 Standard Time in the massive chamber on Central Station. Representatives from 47 different worlds sat in their designated seats, their faces showing worry and confusion. The chamber buzzed with nervous conversation as species after species discussed the same troubling reports. People were disappearing. Admiral Wu Jin stood at the center podium, his uniform perfectly pressed and his expression grim. As head of Galactic Security, it was his job to explain the crisis to the assembled representatives. But the truth was that he had no good explanations to offer. "Honored representatives," he began, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Over the past 30 days, we have received reports of missing personnel from military installations across council space. The total number of disappeared individuals now stands at 112. A murmur of alarm ran through the chamber. Representative Haye Jin from the Altair system raised her hand. "Admiral, what evidence do we have that these disappearances are connected?" Admiral Wu Jin activated a holographic display showing star charts with red markers indicating each disappearance. "The pattern is clear. In every case, the missing personnel were low-ranking officers or technicians who had access to classified information. In every case, they vanished without triggering security alarms or leaving any trace of how they were taken." "Equipment failures," suggested Representative Kyung-soo from the Vega colonies. "Space is dangerous. Accidents happen." 112 accidents in 30 days, Admiral Wu Jin replied. "All involving people with security clearances? All leaving no evidence? That would be the most unlikely coincidence in galactic history." At the back of the chamber, Captain Taemin sat with the other military advisors. He had been promoted to full colonel after his successful campaign against the human rebels, and his opinion carried significant weight in military matters. But today he looked uncomfortable and kept shifting in his seat. The Admiral continued his briefing. "What makes this situation more concerning is that many of the disappeared personnel had recently been asking questions about historical council operations. They were requesting access to files about worlds that went silent in previous decades." Representative Haye Jin leaned forward. "What kind of questions?" "Questions about the silent worlds," Admiral Wu Jin admitted reluctantly. "Questions about evacuation procedures. Questions about what happened to species that refused council protection." The chamber fell silent. The silent worlds were not supposed to be discussed in open session. They were classified matters that only the highest-ranking officials were supposed to know about. "I think we all know what this is really about," said Representative Mi Young from the core worlds. She was an elderly politician who had served on the council for over 30 years. "Someone is trying to dig up information about operations that are better left buried." Admiral Wu Jin nodded grimly. "That is our assessment as well. We believe someone is systematically recruiting council personnel to gather intelligence about classified historical events." "Who would do such a thing?" asked Representative Kyung-soo. Before the Admiral could answer, Colonel Taemin stood up. His face was pale and his hands were shaking slightly. "I request permission to address the chamber." Admiral Wu Jin looked surprised but nodded. "The chair recognizes Colonel Taemin." Taemin walked to the speaker's podium, his military boots echoing loudly in the silent chamber. For a long moment he stood there without speaking, as if trying to decide what to say. 3 years ago, he began finally, "I was assigned to track down the remaining human survivors after their homeworld was evacuated. My mission was successful. I located and processed 847 individuals, accounting for every human who had refused relocation." The representatives nodded. They all knew about Taimin's famous success against the human rebels. "But I have been receiving reports that concern me. Taimin continued, his voice growing stronger. Some of my former unit members have gone missing in recent weeks. Men who served with me during the human campaign are among the disappeared personnel. Admiral Wu Jin frowned. Colonel, what are you suggesting? Taimin took a deep breath. I am suggesting that my mission may not have been as successful as I reported. I am suggesting that some humans may have survived and they may be responsible for these disappearances. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Representative after representative stood up to demand explanations. The idea that humans might still exist was supposed to be impossible. Order! Admiral Wu Jin shouted, banging his gavel. Colonel Taimin, please explain your concerns in detail. Taimin's hands were shaking openly now. During my final operation against the humans, I encountered resistance that was far more organized and capable than my reports indicated. The humans displayed technology and tactics that should not have been possible for a defeated species. But you confirmed the elimination of all targets, Admiral Wu Jin said sternly. I confirmed the elimination of all targets I could find, Taimin replied. But there were always more humans at each location than I was able to account for. Groups of people who seemed to vanish before my forces arrived. Representative Mi Young stood up slowly. Colonel, are you telling this chamber that you falsified your mission reports? The question hung in the air like a poison cloud. If Taimin had lied about completing his mission, it meant that humans were still alive. And if humans were still alive, they represented a threat that the Council was not prepared to handle. Taimin closed his eyes. I reported the mission as successful because that was what my superiors wanted to hear. But the truth is that I may have eliminated less than half of the human survivors. The rest escaped using methods I could not understand or track. The chamber exploded in angry voices. Representatives demanded investigations, court-martials, and explanations. Some called for Taimin's immediate arrest. Others insisted that the human threat needed to be eliminated once and for all. But Admiral Wu Jin was thinking about something else entirely. He was thinking about a message he had received that morning, a message that had been delivered to his personal quarters without triggering any security systems. The message was simple. We know what you did to Earth. We know what you did to the 12 silent worlds. We know about all of it. Justice is coming. The message had been signed Lieutenant Sora, formerly of Council Intelligence, now of the Free Worlds Alliance. Admiral Wu Jin realized that the disappearances were not random kidnappings. They were extractions. The humans were not taking people prisoner. They were offering them sanctuary in exchange for information about Council crimes. And it was working. 112 people had chosen to disappear rather than continue serving an organization they had learned was built on genocide and lies. Colonel Taimin, Admiral Wu Jin said quietly, interrupting the chaos in the chamber. I need to ask you a direct question. In your professional opinion, how many humans do you believe are still alive? Taimin looked like a man facing his own execution. Based on the evidence I observed but did not report, I estimate that between 300 and 400 humans may have survived my campaign. The chamber fell completely silent. And these survivors have had 3 years to organize, recruit allies, and prepare for whatever they are planning. Admiral Wu Jin continued. They have demonstrated the ability to infiltrate our most secure facilities and extract personnel without detection. They have access to our classified communications and detailed knowledge of our operations. Representative He Jin asked the question that everyone was thinking. What do they want? Admiral Wu Jin looked around the chamber at the faces of the representatives. Some of them knew the truth about the Council's history. Others were beginning to suspect. All of them were afraid. They want justice, he said simply. And based on what I have learned about their capabilities, I believe they are going to get it. As the emergency session dissolved into panic and argument, Admiral Wu Jin made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. He activated his personal communicator and sent a simple message to coordinates he had memorized from Lieutenant Sora's transmission. The message contained just 4 words. I want to talk. 6 months later, Lieutenant Sora stood on the bridge of a ship unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The vessel was enormous, nearly 10 kilometers long. But it moved through space with the grace and silence of a hunting bird. Its hull was a mixture of human engineering and alien technology, created through the combined efforts of 12 different species. The ship was called Truthbearer, and it was the flagship of the Free Worlds Alliance. Sora wore a new uniform now, one that bore the symbols of all the species that had joined the resistance against the Galactic Council. Her rank insignia showed that she had been promoted to commander, but more importantly, she had been given the title of Truth Keeper, responsible for documenting and preserving evidence of the Council's crimes. "Commander," reported Captain Do-hyun from the tactical station, "we are receiving surrender requests from 7 more Council worlds. The governors of Kepler 452b and Proxima 3 are asking for protection from Council retaliation forces." Sora nodded, making notes on her datapad. Do-hyun was one of the 3 humans who had escaped from Tai-min's final attack 3 years ago. He had spent those years building alliances with species across the galaxy, preparing for this moment when the truth would finally be revealed. The Free Worlds Alliance had grown far beyond what anyone could have imagined. It now included representatives from 37 different worlds, all united by their refusal to accept the Council's tyranny. Some were species that had discovered the truth about the Silent Worlds. Others were Council personnel who had been extracted when they showed signs of conscience. But the alliance was not built on revenge or conquest. It was built on a simple principle that Captain Do-hyun had learned from his destroyed homeworld. Justice delayed is justice denied. But justice achieved through evil means is not justice at all. "Any word from Admiral Wu Jin?" Sora asked. "He is waiting in conference room 7, Do-hyun replied. "He brought the files you requested along with testimony from 43 former Council officials." Sora smiled grimly. Admiral Wu Jin had been one of their most valuable recruits. When he learned the full truth about the Council's history, he had not just defected. He had brought most of his staff with him, along with classified records that proved every genocide the Council had committed over the past century. "And Colonel Tai-min?" Do-hyun's expression grew more serious. "He is in Detention Bay 4 as requested. He has been cooperating fully with the investigation teams." The decision about what to do with Tai-min had been one of the hardest choices the Alliance faced. He had committed terrible crimes against humanity, but he had also shown the courage to confess his lies and provide evidence about the Council's operations. In the end, they had offered him the same choice they offered everyone: stand trial for his crimes or help them build a better galaxy. Tai-min had chosen to help, working day and night to contact other military officers who might be willing to listen to the truth. "Commander Sora," came a voice from the communication station. "We are receiving a priority transmission from the core worlds. It appears to be a general broadcast to all inhabited systems." Sora felt her heart rate increase. "Put it on the main screen." The bridge's massive display showed the familiar symbol of the Galactic Council, but the face that appeared was not one of the usual representatives. Instead, it was Admiral Jin-ae, the highest-ranking military officer in Council space. Her expression was grim and her voice was steady. "Citizens of the galaxy," Admiral Jin-ae began. "For the past 6 months you have been hearing reports about a rebellion led by supposed human survivors. The Council has assured you that these reports were false, that all humans were safely relocated years ago." Sora exchanged glances with Do-hyun. This was not what they had expected. "I am here today to tell you that the Council has been lying," Admiral Jin-ae continued. "Not just about the humans, but about many things. I have seen evidence that proves the Council has been systematically destroying any species that refuses to submit to their authority." The bridge fell silent as everyone stopped their work to listen. 3 days ago, I was presented with documents that show the truth about the Silent Worlds, Admiral Jin-ae said. "These worlds did not choose isolation. They were destroyed because they discovered evidence of Council crimes and threatened to expose them to the galaxy." Sora felt tears in her eyes. Admiral Jin-ae was the highest-ranking Council official ever to defect to their cause. Her testimony would carry weight with species that might not trust the word of human survivors. "The humans were not relocated to safety," Admiral Jin-ae continued. "Their homeworld was destroyed in an act of genocide, designed to prevent them from revealing what they had learned about the Council's true nature. Most of their people died, but some survived, and they have spent the past 3 years gathering evidence and building alliances with other species who refuse to accept tyranny." The transmission continued for 20 minutes as Admiral Jin-ae methodically presented evidence of 12 different genocides, all committed by the Council and all covered up through lies and manipulation. She showed documents, recordings, and testimony from hundreds of witnesses. But the most powerful moment came at the end. when she introduced special guests. "I want you to meet some people," Admiral Jinneh said as the camera pulled back to show a group of individuals standing behind her. "These are survivors of the Epsilon Eridani massacre, the Beta Pictoris purge, and the Tau Ceti sterilization. For decades, the Council told the galaxy that these people never existed, but they are here today to tell you their stories." One by one, the survivors stepped forward to speak. They told stories of worlds destroyed, families murdered, and entire civilizations erased from history. They spoke in calm, clear voices, presenting facts and evidence rather than emotional appeals. The final speaker was an elderly woman from a species Sora did not recognize. "My name is Elder Yunhee," she said. "I am the last survivor of the world you knew as Kepler 438b. 50 years ago, my people discovered evidence that the Council was stealing resources from protected worlds. We tried to bring this evidence to the galactic community." The woman paused, her voice breaking slightly. "In response, the Council declared our world unsafe and ordered evacuation. When we refused to leave our homes, they burned our planet to ash. I escaped in a small ship and have been hiding ever since, waiting for someone brave enough to help me tell the truth. The Free Worlds Alliance gave me that chance," Elder Yunhee continued. "They proved to me that there are still species in this galaxy who believe in justice rather than power. They showed me that the victims of genocide do not have to die in silence." When the transmission ended, the bridge of Truthbearer was completely quiet. After a long moment, Captain Do-hyun spoke. "Communications, how many worlds are receiving that broadcast?" "All of them, sir," came the reply. "The signal is being transmitted on every frequency in the galaxy. The Council cannot block it without shutting down all communications." Sora realized that this was the moment everything changed. For 3 years, the Free Worlds Alliance had been gathering evidence and building support in secret. Now they were presenting their case to the entire galaxy at once. "Commander," reported the tactical officer, "we are receiving messages from across Council space. 17 worlds have declared independence in the past hour. 23 military fleets are requesting instructions to join the Alliance. The Council capital station is reporting massive civil unrest." Sora smiled, but it was a sad smile. Justice was finally coming. But it had taken genocide and decades of lies to reach this point. Too many people had died. Too many worlds had been destroyed. "Captain Do-hyun," she said formally, "I recommend we begin Phase 2 of the Liberation Plan." Do-hyun nodded. "Agreed. Signal all Alliance fleets to move to their assigned positions. It is time to offer the Council the same choice we have offered everyone else." "And what choice is that?" asked Admiral Wu Jin, who had just arrived on the bridge. Sora looked at him with eyes that had seen too much suffering but still held hope for the future. "The same choice we offered you, Admiral. The same choice we offered Colonel Taemin. The same choice we have offered to every person who has joined our cause. Stand trial for your crimes," Captain Do-hyun continued, "or help us build a galaxy where genocide is no longer possible." As the Free Worlds Alliance fleet moved toward the Council capital, Sora thought about the long journey that had brought her to this moment. It had started with Captain Taemin's boasting in an officer's lounge. It had continued through her investigation into the truth about humanity's fate. But it was ending with something much larger than revenge, or even justice. It was ending with the chance to create a galaxy where no species would ever again have to fear extinction for refusing to surrender their freedom. The war between the Council and humanity was over. The humans had lost their world and most of their people, but they had won something more important. They had proven that even genocide could not destroy the idea that all intelligent life deserved to exist, free from tyranny. And that idea, once planted, could never be killed.